For thousands of years, humans were guests on this planet. We wandered through endless plains and dense forests, our routines dictated by the natural world. Survival required an exhaustive understanding of the environment. Our ancestors knew exactly which plants were edible and which were toxic. They used fire to cook meat and ward off threats, and their ears were constantly tuned to the rustle of the wind, listening for the gait of a predator. Living in tight-knit bands of 20 to 30 people meant there was almost no social hierarchy. Every piece of food gathered was shared among the tribe. There were no rich or poor, because the concept of private property did not exist. Yet, amidst this daily struggle, they maintained a rich inner life. The scenes painted onto cave walls prove these early humans were careful observers and artists, documenting their rituals and the animals they hunted. This nomadic existence accounts for 96% of our entire history as a species, a delicate balance where we lived completely dependent on nature's provisions. This chart tracks global temperatures, showing a sudden drop approximately 12,900 years ago. The Earth was plunged into a brutal mini ice age known as the Younger Dryas. The deep freeze devastated the ecosystem. Vast forests withered into barren landscapes, and the massive animals early humans relied on for meat rapidly died off. At archaeological sites like Abu Huraira in modern-day Syria, the evidence points to a massive food crisis. The wild plants and animal herds these tribes depended on completely vanished from the surrounding terrain. Traditional hunting and foraging now yielded fewer calories than the effort required to gather them. As the forests shrank and the herds migrated, the nomadic strategy reached a point of diminishing returns. Humanity was backed into an evolutionary corner. The strategy that had kept us alive for millennia was failing, forcing our ancestors to find a new way to feed themselves or face starvation. The solution likely began with a simple observation. Someone noticed that wild grain seeds, discarded in the mud near a camp, had sprouted into fresh plants after the rainfall. This observation changed the value of the seed. Instead of immediate consumption, it represented a predictable future harvest that could be stored and deployed on command. This shift accelerated in the Fertile Crescent. The region possessed the perfect combination of wide river valleys and a natural abundance of wild, edible grasses like wheat and barley. As early humans harvested these wild grasses, they naturally selected the plants with the thickest stalks and the largest, most tightly bound grains. By planting only these superior seeds the following season, they engineered wildgrass into domesticated crops. By directing the life cycle of these plants, humans shifted from harvesting what existed to dictating what would grow. We stopped waiting for nature to provide and began actively managing the soil. Managing crops required completely different tools than hunting animals. Heavy, blunt stones used for crushing bones were replaced by refined instruments designed specifically for agriculture. Artifacts like this early sickle feature sharp flint teeth set securely into a curved wooden handle, engineered precisely to slice through thick stalks of grain. But a successful harvest created an immediate logistical problem. Months' worth of grain had to be protected from moisture, rot, and hungry rodents. The solution was clay. By shaping wet earth and baking it in fire, these early farmers manufactured durable vessels that kept their harvests dry and secure. You cannot carry fields of wheat and heavy clay pots on your back. To tend the crops and guard the surplus, humans had to anchor themselves to the land, constructing deep stone walls and permanent settlements. For the first time in human history, one person working the soil could produce more calories than they personally needed to consume. This surplus created a buffer. Since everyone no longer had to spend their days looking for food, parts of the population were freed to specialize as potters, toolmakers, builders, and eventually priests and warriors. Storing surplus grain also birthed the concept of ownership. Land and food were no longer shared equally. They were hoarded, fenced off, and claimed by individuals and families. To protect these stockpiles, communities needed ruis and enforcers. Those with the largest storehouses accumulated power, creating a rigid social ladder of kings, guards, and laborers, while neighboring settlements began raiding each other for resources. The price of a guaranteed meal and a permanent roof was steep. In exchange for the security of the harvest, humanity traded away the equality it had practiced for thousands of years. Looking at the biological tool, researchers like Jared Diamond have argued that the adoption of agriculture was actually a devastating turn in human history. Nomads survived on a wide spectrum of wild fruits, nuts, roots, and meats, providing a dense mix of vitamins and proteins. Farmers, however, subsisted almost entirely on high-carbohydrate, low-nutrient grains like wheat and barley. The skeletal record reveals the consequence. The bones of early farmers show a significant drop in average height, widespread arthritis from endless hours of field labor, and massive tooth decay caused by their new diet. This flowchart illustrates the new fragility of settled life. When rains failed, the calorie supply vanished, leaving the village vulnerable to mass starvation. Furthermore, cramming humans alongside livestock allowed diseases like smallpox to jump to human hosts. The shorter stature, the infections from livestock, and the brittle bones of the fields defined the physical reality of the first farmers. They were sicker and lived vastly harder lives than their wandering ancestors. If working the soil degraded our bodies and fractured our society, why didn't we just drop the sickles and walk back into the woods? We had fallen into a biological trap. Without the need to carry infants across hundreds of miles, women in permanent villages could safely have more children, triggering an irreversible population boom. Once the population swelled, the math flipped. The surrounding forests simply could not generate enough wild calories to feed these massive communities. The only way to survive was to keep plowing. We are still living inside that trap. Every modern government, every standing army, our global markets, and modern technology exists because our ancestors stayed in one place to guard their grain. We traded health and equality for survival. Choosing the harvest over the hunt laid the roots for the sprawling concrete grids we inhabit today.